As the city became more digital in terms of our strategy, we knew that we couldn't ignore the fact that we needed to understand where the citizens were, and that ultimately our processes would have to integrate in with citizens in terms of what they were doing. The challenge that we have in South Africa, however, is that we have this wide income gap, right? So what we have is that technology was very much out of the reach of ordinary citizens, who actually were about 70 to 80% of the people that we actually served. What we then embarked upon was SmartCape, and SmartCape was really, at the time, it was basically the largest public access project in Africa. It connected our 100 libraries together. It provided internet access to citizens, so they could go to a public library, they could get free access to the internet, they could start to interact with the city, and that was the whole idea behind that. Now, what you got to understand is that we were doing this at a time in South Africa when there was virtually no connectivity. We had Telkom as the monopoly operator. We didn't have things like even ADSL, let alone fiber and broadband internet and those kind of things. We used to use dial-up modems to actually connect remote places together. And then all of a sudden here you get these crazy people from the city of Cape Town, IT organization, that says we're going to connect citizens. And we actually have to now go and deploy this. And we have to go deploy it in places where Telkom didn't even have infrastructure. And that really created the catalyst for the broadband project, because what it exposed to us at the time was the lack of infrastructure, telecommunications infrastructure in our city. And that's the thing about local government, right? Local government is where the people are. Local government has to serve people. So local government had to serve people in areas where there was no other infrastructure. And we had to go and build that infrastructure. And at that point in time, we needed it for our own operations, because the city had become a lot more digital and a lot more reliant on its technology infrastructure. But we also understood that it was an infrastructure that was going to position Cape Town as this key player in the new digital economy coming. People argued that it wasn't the mandate of the city to do this kind of thing, but the reality is that we couldn't deliver our services without this.
As broadband rollout in South Africa more generally, and as the market for mobile and broadband connectivity has become more competitive, the role of the city government has changed. There are now several network, broadband network providers. There's several mobile data providers. Given that the city has multiple demands on its budget, on its fiscus, and many services to deliver, the city has to prioritize and think about what can it do that no one else will do, and which things can be better provided, more efficiently provided by the private sector. And so the city does still have a broadband program. It's focused on completing those connections to priority facilities. But increasingly, the focus is not going to be on providing the actual access. It's going to be about enabling residents to engage with city services digitally more and more.
We started originally in 2000 with the city's website. So that was, the early days, basically. 2000, city has a website, and that's the public face of the city. Citizens come there and we give them information, essentially. Our first foray into kind of more interactivity was in 2002. So in 2002, the city decided to publish its valuation roll online, and to allow you as a citizen to go and compare your valuation of your property to your neighbor's valuation and to your people in your area with similar kind of properties. And to be honest, we didn't expect it to be used that much. I mean, it was 2002, not that many people were connected to the internet. Internet wasn't really that big at that point in time. But it proved so popular that our server fell over. But it kind of proved this notion that citizens wanted to actually interact. They wanted information online. So that was 2002, right? 2003, we essentially had the call center that was part of the ERP implementation, 100-seater call center, again, driving this notion that we needed the single point of access for any kind of interaction that you needed with the city. And we needed to essentially have one place that would then drive integration of all of the issues across the city. 2005, we introduced C3 notification as essentially a key technology that again gave you a single ticketing system fully integrated into SAP that then allowed you to track your issues. So you as the citizen would then be able to follow up with that notification number, and we'd be able to tell you where in the process that information was. It also helped us be able to manage the departments and make sure that we could follow up on which departments were performing, which departments were not performing, all of those kind of issues. In time, that evolved to an online system where citizens could then use the web to log their calls and essentially track that. So that was kind of the journey through that, and while that was happening, the website was also evolving because, as I said, technology had changed and there was a bit more interaction. We had also understood that citizens wanted to interact a bit more. So in that entire process, the city's website constantly evolves, and it's used for public participation, it's used for opinion polls, it's used to get comment on, on documents around policies and those kind of things.